Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here and for your willingness to try mediation. So, before we begin, how is everyone today? Because I know some of you may have traveled or come in under pressure. So, thank you for making the time here.
Good.
Good.
Yeah, I'm good.
Good.
Hi, we're good.
Hi.
Okay, I see. So don't worry. Me and my co-mediator are here to assist you and ensure the best outcomes for each party. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here. So to begin, my name is Jordan Julian and I have my co-mediator with me today.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Sarah Han, and nice meeting everyone here. So me and Jordan hope that you feel comfortable and heard throughout this mediation session. Let's just start off by introducing ourselves. So perhaps we can start with the claimant, Miss Jennifer.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, mediators. I'm Jennifer GRISHAM, a novelist, and for decades, writing have been my livelihood and the results of years of my creative effort.
Um, for Daily Ledger, Miss Denise.
Thank you, mediators. So I'm Denise Anand, the Vice President and Chief Legal Officer of the Daily Ledger. I'm here on behalf of our newsroom, our journalists, and our subscriber.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Dennis. Perhaps you can get from Microsoft. We have two people from Microsoft. Dr. Sandy.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Sandy Jabbour and I'm Microsoft's AI Innovation Officer. Microsoft's role in this matter is as a deployer of the AI application built on a licensed foundational model.
Thank you, Dr. Sandy.
Um,
And Microsoft's lawyer.
Hi, Miss Sarah and Miss Jordan. Thank you so much. And I am Rizal ASLI, Microsoft's lawyer, and I am here to represent Microsoft in today's mediation.
Next, can we have representatives from Omni AI?
Yes, good morning, everyone. So I'm Jun Wei, and I am a co-founder and also chief executive officer of Omni AI.
Yes, go ahead, the lawyer for Omni AI.
Okay, good morning. I'm Shuan Singh, counselors for Omni AI. We appreciate the opportunities to be here today and we look forward to a constructive discussions for the best possible outcomes.
Okay, thank you everyone. Just to be clear about mine and Jordan's role here, we are just neutral facilitators. We do not take sides, we do not make decisions, and we do not force outcomes. So this is not a court. We will not be witnesses later. Everything discussed here is strictly confidential. Nothing said today can be used outside this room or in court proceedings. And with that said, back to you, Jordan.
Okay, thank you everyone for introducing yourself just now. So now that we are acquainted with one another, so I hope this process will go just a tad bit smoother for us. So before we begin, I'd like to briefly deal with a few logistical and procedural matters. As you are aware, this mediation is being conducted online. So this is a private and secure session and everything discussed today is strictly confidential and also confined to this mediation process. So we understand that all participants are joining from private locations and we appreciate everyone ensuring that there are no authorized persons present. So nothing said here today may be used outside this mediation or in any subsequent proceedings. So before we begin again, may I just confirm that all parties have received the agreement to mediate because this agreement sets out the confidentiality, voluntary nature and also ground rules for today's session. So if counsel could please confirm that their clients have reviewed and are agreeable to the terms, we will ask that the agreement be signed virtually now so that we may formally proceed with the mediation.
Yes, Microsoft can confirm that.
The
I
daily
also,
ledger also can confirm that.
Jennifer also can confirm that.
Omni AI also can confirm that.
Okay, so thank you. With the agreement in place, we can now begin.
For smooth communication, we ask that microphones be kept on mute when we're not speaking and that mobile phones are placed on silent to avoid disruption. If you wish to speak while another party has the floor, please use the raise hand function so we can manage the discussion fairly. Should there be any technical issues or emergencies, our contact numbers have been shared in the chat. So please also note that the chat function itself forms part of this confidential session and will not be retained once the mediation concludes. Can I just get a brief confirmation from everyone?
Yes, sure.
So without further ado, there are two of us facilitating today. I'll begin the opening and my co-mediator will continue. We'll guide the discussion and assist with communication and help explore possible resolutions, but any outcome remains entirely within your control.
Thank you. If everyone is comfortable, we will now move into the mediator's opening statement. So before we begin, we would like to briefly explain how today's session will proceed. This mediation is a confidential and voluntary process, so we encourage all parties to be open and candid because nothing said here may be used outside this mediation or in any future proceedings. For the opening statements, each party may choose to speak personally or through their lawyer. That choice is entirely yours. Opening statements will be uninterrupted as we want each party to have a full and fair opportunity to be heard. We may occasionally ask for short clarifying questions purely to ensure we understand the points accurately. We also recognize that this matter involves strong commercial and personal interest, and emotion may arise. So if you have something to respond to while another party is speaking, we ask that you make a note and you will be given an opportunity to address it once they have finished.
Okay, I just want to be clear about our role. So mediation is just an alternative to litigation. So we are all here, me and Jordan, we are neutral and independent third party facilitator. We do not decide on who is right or wrong, and we cannot force any outcome. So any suggestions we are making are simply invitations for you to consider. You each, every one of you retain full control on whether to continue or settle. If at any point you feel like the process is not meeting your needs, you may step out, although we encourage you to speak with us first. Our shared goal here today is to help you communicate effectively and explore whether a resolution can be reached that protects your interests, reputations, and future relationships. So please bring any relevant documents. This will help ensure the session goes on smoothly. Again, anything shared will remain confidential and cannot be used as evidence in court or future proceedings. Do we have an agreement on that?
Yes.
Okay, if
Yes, for
anyone
Omni AI part.
feels, thank you. If anyone feels overwhelmed or uncomfortable at any point during the session, you may request for a private caucus. So it's a private meeting with us to regroup and express concerns and explore alternative solutions. Likewise, if we think a caucus will help move things forward, you may request a private section with me and my co-mediator. In a caucus, you can speak more candidly, and we will not disclose what's necessary to help the mediation. So if everyone is comfortable, we'll now proceed with each and every one of your opening statement. So can we start with Jennifer? Miss Jennifer, your opening
Sure.
statement.
Yeah. I'm Jennifer Grisham. Writing isn't just my career, it's my life's work. Every book I've written represents years of my creativity, sweat, and dedication. And it's heartbreaking to see that work used without my consent. I am deeply frustrated and frankly hurt that my novels have been exploited to train an AI model, and now content similar to my work can be generated without my permission. This isn't just numbers of sales, it's my livelihood, my reputation, and my ability to keep creating stories that people love. I want to be clear. I value technology and innovation, but it cannot come at the expense of creators like me. What I need from this mediation is recognition of my rights, fair compensation for what has happened, and meaningful safeguard to protect my work going forward. I am here to find a constructive, confidential resolution, but I cannot ignore the very real harm this situation has caused me.
Thank you, Jennifer. I hear you. We understand how deeply this situation has affected you. Your frustration, your sense of loss, your concerns about your livelihood are completely clear to us. We want to assure you that this mediation is a safe space to express those feelings, and our goal is to help all parties here to work toward a fair, constructive resolution. Thank you.
Exactly, that is what I want to emphasize. The creative work I've fought in my life deserves to be safeguarded, and I want to see concrete steps taken to ensure it is respected going forward. I'm here to find a way for both sides to reach a fair understanding without shifting innovation.
Absolutely, Jennifer. So to summarize and be clear, we hear that your main concerns are the unauthorized use of your creative work, the impact this has had on your livelihood, and your hope for a resolution that respects your intellectual property. So we will keep that at the forefront as we continue and make sure the discussion remains constructive. So let's now move on to Denise for the next opening statement.
Thank you, Jordan. So once again, I'm Denise Annan, the Vice President and Chief Legal Officer of the Daily Ledger. So let me be very clear from the outset. We are here today because what has happened to our organization strikes at the heart of who we are and how we survive. The Daily Ledger is not just content, it is decades of credibility, investigative labor, editorial judgment, and public trust. Our journalists work under real pressure, real risk, and real accountability. Our business depends on readers choosing to pay for the journalism because they trust that it is original, reliable, and responsibly produced. So, what we are deeply upset about, and I say this plainly, is that thousands of our copyrighted articles were taken wholesale without consent, without compensation, and without even acknowledgement, and used to train Microsoft large language model. And that conduct, from our perspective, amounts to a clear infringement of our rights under the Copyright Act 1987, particularly Section 13, which gives copyright owners the exclusive right to reproduce and communicate their works to the public. So we strongly dispute that this can be justified as fair dealing, especially when it is systematic, where the use is systematic, commercial, and substitute the original works in the market. So the AI output now produced by this model do not merely summarize or reference our reporting. They imitate it. They replicate our tone, structure, and substance. So readers are being given content that looks and feels like the Daily Ledger without ever coming to us, without subscribing, and without understanding that the work they are consuming was built on our journalist labor. The consequences have been real and painful to us. We have seen a drop in the subscription, both physical and digital. We have suffered reputational harm, which is reflected in the decline in the trust in media rankings. And it is a metric that matters enormously in an era where public confidence in journalism is already fragile. So this is not a hypothetical damage. This is our livelihood, our credibility, and our role in public discourse being undermined. What makes this situation even more troubling is the lack of transparency and accountability surrounding how our content was used. Microsoft tells us OmniAI trained the model. We only license it. But OmniAI in turn say its training practice are lawful. This finger pointing leaves us in dark. We still do not know who exactly ingested the Daily Ledger's content, how extensively it was used, whether our article remained embedded in the training data, and whether the data can genuinely be removed or excluded going forward. So for a publisher whose entire existence depends on the trust and accountability, this uncertainty is deeply unsettling for us. So if possible, we will demand 650,000 ringgit in compensation for each infringed work, taking into account the intellectual property rights associated with the work that belong to the Daily Ledger. This is not a symbolic number. It reflects the real economic, reputational, and legal harm caused by this systematic, large-scale misuse of our content. So let me be clear again, the Daily Ledger is not anti-technology. We are not opposed to artificial intelligence AI. What we are opposed to is that innovation that treat journalism as free raw material, stripped of legal protection and economic value. That is not innovation. That is exploitation. So we have agreed to mediation because we recognize that litigation will be long, expensive, and publicly damaging to everyone involved here, but we have not come here to simply move on or accept symbolic gesture. We are here to demand accountability, meaningful compensation, and concrete safeguard to prevent this from happening again in the future. We want solutions that respect copyright law, protect independent journalism, and acknowledge that content creators are not expendable input in an AI supply chain. They must be serious and substantive. We hope that with your guidance as mediators, today's discussion can lead to a resolution that reflects fairness, accountability, and respect for the law. Thank you. That's all from me.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, Denise. So, to summarize what we have heard from the Daily Ledger, the key concerns are authorized use of your articles to train an AI model, the financial and reputational harm caused by that, and the lack of transparency around accountability. So you are asking fair compensation, assurance that your content is protected going forward, and commitments from the other parties to prevent similar issues in the future. So I also want to acknowledge that while there are legal arguments from your side, we are not here today to decide who's right or wrong under the law. That's something courts and arbitrators do. So mediation gives us a different opportunity to step back from legal positions and focus instead on practical solutions that everyone can live with. So let's keep the daily ledger's concerns firmly in mind as we move forward and use this space to explore outcomes that address the harm felt. Also reduce risk for all parties and hopefully allow everyone to move on without the cost, stress, and also publicity of litigation. So before we move on, Denise, can I just check with you, does that fairly reflect all the issues the Daily Ledger is raising today? Like, is there anything important you would like to add or clarify at this stage?
I think nothing to clarify so far.
Okay, thank you, Denise. I appreciate you confirming that the summaries captures your concerns. So we will keep the daily ledger's issues very much in mind as we continue, particularly the impact on your organization, the importance of transparency, and your interest in concrete. So forward-looking protections rather than symbolic responses. At this stage, we have a clearer picture of the perspective in the room, and that gives us a useful foundation for the discussion ahead. As we move on, I will encourage everyone to listen not just for points of disagreement, but also for areas where there may be shared interests or overlapping concerns. So unless there's anything else anyone wishes to raise immediately, we will now move on to hear from Microsoft. So before we begin exploring options together, Microsoft.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. And again, I am Rizal Asli, representing Microsoft's corporation. And my client takes those matters very seriously, actually, and is committed responsible technology and ethical business practices. And Microsoft, in fact, did not directly train the AI model in question. The foundation of the model was actually developed by Omni AI, and my client used it in a good faith and trusting that proper procedures were actually followed. And at no point did Microsoft intend to infringe or on any third party's work. And this situation has placed a considerable amount of operational, emotional, and reputational pressure on the team, on my team. And they are concerned about the potential impact on business relationships, investors' confidence, and public perception. And they are fully committed to working constructively to clarify their role and identify practical steps forward. And in terms of concrete proposals, Microsoft is prepared to offer full transparency about its use of third party technology, including how it deployed the AI model. And Microsoft, they are committed to collaborate with Omni AI to ensure datasets are properly managed and that technical safeguards are in place to prevent any unintended replication of content, actually. And without admitting liability, Microsoft is open to supporting initiatives of funds that could assist impacted creators in the constructive way. And in addition to it, they will implement ongoing procedures and monitoring when using a third party models to reduce the risk of misuse now and in future. Finally, my client, Microsoft, actually wishes to resolve this matter through confidential mediation and do not wish to go for litigation, aiming for a fair and practical outcome that avoids escalation.
Hello, everyone. I would just like to add a little bit more from what my lawyer has said. So, from my perspective, the situation has been very, very difficult for our team. We have invested countless hours designing and deploying this AI responsibly, and to hear concerns that our work might have caused unintended issues is genuinely very, very frustrating and upsetting. We actually deeply care about ethical AI development and the broader impact on creators, and we also want to do the right thing here. It is important for everyone here to understand that our intention was never to harm anyone at all, but it is rather to innovate in a way that benefits the society. So, on this note, we are here committed to working with Omni AI and also other parties involved to ensure transparency, to implement safeguards, and also to find a very practical resolution here. And we also hope that through this open dialogue in this mediation, we can restore trust and also move forward constructively.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sandy. Thank you, Rizal. We hear you. So I just want to briefly summarize what exactly Microsoft position is all about. So Microsoft is saying that you did not train the AI model and you have acted in good faith as a deployer of licensed technology and you had no intention of infringing any third-party rights. So at the same time, Microsoft recognizes the concerns raised, the pressure the situation has placed on its team, and it's committed to transparency and collaboration with Omni AI and implementing safeguards as we go forward. So all without any admission to liability. So there's a clear link within everyone's parties here. Everyone is not opposed to AI. So with that on record, so let's just move on and let's hear what Omni AI has to say and what exactly is their position.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. I'm Shuan Singh, and as I said, I'm legal counsel representing Omni AI. Omni AI's my clients has invested significant times, efforts, and resources into developing these AI's training models with the belief that these tools can benefit not only the societies but also drive meaningful innovations. This technology is not a mere commercial product. Instead, it represents years of works, commitments, and the reputations of the companies and the peoples behind Omni AI. There is a great deal at stake for my clients. Omni AI is approaching its IPO. In other words, we are going public. And with that comes uh, heightened responsibility to our partners, investors, and the public. Moreover, the trust that Omni AI has earned globally did not come overnight, and protecting that trust is a key concern in this mediation. That being said, my client is also fully aware of the concern raised by Ms. Jennifer's and daily ledgers regarding the use of copyrighted works. Intellectual property right are taken seriously by my clients. However, my client maintains that its activities are lawful and fall within the exception of fair dealings under Section 13, Sub 2, and to be read together with Sub 2A of the Copyright Act 1987. The process of training machine learning models is transformative in nature, as the text is not produced or distributed in human readable or material forms, but instead converted into statistical parameters that allow the model to function. In other words, it serves a completely different purpose. That being said, Omni AI does not dismiss the concerns being raised. We recognize that this dispute had emotional and financial implications to the creators of the works and publishers. Our client is committed to find a constructive, fair, and confidential resolutions. Before I move on to discuss potential proposals, I would like to invite my client's Executive Jun Wei's OmniAI CEO to share her perspective. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Shuan. So frankly speaking, this situation has been very difficult for all of us at OmniAI. We have invested years of effort into building technology that we genuinely believe is lawful, is helpful, and also life-changing. And seeing that work condemned has been very hard. And as the CEO, I am responsible and accountable not just to the company, but everyone involved in the development of AI technology. Therefore, I cannot risk this technology to go in vain, and I am obliged to safeguard for the company's best interest, particularly when Omni AI is going public. So, having said that, I also do care about the creators. I respect the creativity and effort that authors and journalists has put into their works, and I understand why they feel threatened over the risk of their work being replaced by AI, which taking away all the reward of their hard work. However, it is frustrating to feel that our intentions are being misunderstood because our goal was never to affect anyone's livelihood or replace their copyrighted works in the market. Regardless, what matters most to me today is finding a win-win solution that recognizes the value of creative work while also allowing the innovation to move forward responsibly. I hope we can work toward an outcome that is fair to everyone involved.
June, thank you for being so honest and vulnerable. We understand that this can be very emotional and it can, for you to feel very frustrated. But let's just take a deep breath and remember that we are here, we are all here to find solutions. That's the purpose of this mediation and not to assign blame. So please continue focusing on the constructive aspects moving forward. Okay?
You're right. I'm sorry. It's really hard to see the situation from all sides while feeling like our efforts are being questioned. I do want to work towards something fair, truly.
Okay, thank you so much, June and Xuan. So here's what we are hearing right now. So firstly, Omni AI has invested years of passionate effort and resources into this innovation, right? And the company and its leadership, they are feeling deeply hurt, frustrated, misunderstood. Yet you want to resolve the dispute fairly and confidentially. So both creators and innovators are motivated by a desire to protect their work, reputation, and livelihood. So there's a clear link between all of you here because all parties want a resolution that respects everyone's interests. So that is why everyone is here today. Okay, let's just hear out the proposal from Omni AI's lawyer, which is Shuan Singh. Proceed, Mr. Shuan.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So before I outline our proposals, I would like to address to the concerns raised by Ms. Jennifer and Daily Ledgers. My clients understand that these concerns are serious and they are not dismissed or taken lightly. As I mentioned, our client has spent years in building its AI technology with the aim of contributing positively to the societies. But at the same time, our clients recognize that the development of new technology could raise real concerns for creators and publishers, particularly where copyrighted works are involved. However, we are genuine to look for a win-win situation. So with that context, this is what my client is prepared to propose. First, in terms of transparency enhancement, well, my client does not admit any legal liabilities. My client is prepared to address the concern raised regarding the use of copyrighted work in AI trainings. Omni AI is committed to disclose information in respect of how data training is sourced and managed, and so that there is a greater clarity and convenience around the process. In addition, my client is prepared to strengthen its internal system for tracking and managing data training with the aim of reducing the risk of unintended inclusion of copyrighted materials in the future, particularly in reproduction of the substantial part of the copyrighted works. And second, which is the most important part, the financial spots. Omni AI's my clients recognize that concerns have been raised about the real world impact of AI on authors and publishers, particularly their financial fruit that should receive by them. So in response, my client is prepared to establish a creative support fund to provide recognitions and financial supports to affected creators and publishers, including Miss Jennifer's and Daily Ledgers. We believe that this is a practical way to address the situation and offer supports via an admission of infringements in terms of copyright. However, our clients shall not bear this burden alone. Instead, it should be shared equally with Microsoft, and we are jointly responsible for the use of the AI's training models. And third is technical safeguards and future commitments. OmniAI is committed to implement enhanced technical measures to minimize the risk of copyrighted materials being reproduced, as I mentioned just now, in AI outputs. These measures include improved prompts, filtering, data sets, exclusion, and ongoing monitoring of outputs. OmniAI is also open to engage with authors and publishers to explore practical protocols and respect IP's rights, while still allowing innovations to continue lawfully and responsibly. Finally, we like to emphasize that OmniAI, my client, and I are approaching this mediation in good faith. My client believes that cooperative interest-based resolutions rather than right-based resolutions like litigation is in our best interest, and so for everyone. We are open to refine these proposals taking into consideration of everyone's core considerations. May I confirm this with my client's CEO, Yung Wei?
Yeah, Shuan, I can confirm that this really reflects our position. So what we are trying to do here is offer a practical way forward, which we have prepared to set up the Creative Support Fund as a form of goodwill. This is to recognize the concerns which raised by the creators, but also without admitting legal liability from our part. So at the same time, we are also committed to strengthening our technical safeguards to reduce the risk of copyrighted content appearing in our AI outputs. And we are also open to working with both authors and publishers on measures that it is better respect intellectual property going forward. And our hope is to resolve this matter in a way that is constructive, measures, and also kept confidential for everyone involved. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, June. Thank you, Xuan. And just to briefly recap what we have heard so far. So I want you guys to see there's a clear link between Omni AI and Microsoft in this situation. So if I can just share with you here on what exactly Microsoft wants. So there's there's a link between both Omni and Microsoft. So what you're trying to say is that you want there to be more transparency, right? Transparency about AI use and deployment. And also collaborate on technical safeguards. Technical safeguards. Okay, so you also want confidentiality. And you don't want to admit any sort of liability, but you're open to supporting, funds for creators and authors. So if you can see, there's a clear link to exactly the same thing as what Omni AI wants. Okay, so both of you have worked very hard. So you also want there to be transparency and see on training data and how copyrighted works are managed. And also technical safeguards. So you see, there's clear link between what everyone wants here today. I hope we can put this in mind as we move forward. And if I may, since there's a clear link, if I may, before we move further with overlapping these overlaps, perhaps we can hear from the creators themselves. So Jennifer and representatives from Daily Ledger, would you like to respond to the proposal we have
Okay,
summarized? So,
wait. See, I appreciate that everyone is trying to find a solution. But I have to be honest, while I hear the words support and safeguard, I'm worried about whether they are enough to actually protect creators like me. My books are my livelihood, like I said earlier. The thought that my work could be reproduced without my consent is distressing and it affects my trust in this whole process. I want to see concrete and meaningful steps. Financial recognition, yes, it is important, but so is control over my work is used in the future. I need assurance that my intellectual property won't be treated as if just data to be mined.
Okay, I also have something to say. So at the surface, I don't oppose to other proposal from both parties, but on the creative support fund, for me, it doesn't feel like a compensation to us. It sounds nice, but it does not deal with what has already happened because we have lost subscriber, we have lost trust, we have lost real income. So those losses are not only theoretical because they are already here. What worries me is that this feels very, very vague to us. A fund that might help at some point in the future doesn't fix the damage that we are dealing with right now. Our newsroom is hurting. Our journalists are asking whether their work still matters. Our readers are starting to question our credibility. So from our side, it feels like only I use our content, build something valuable from it, and is now offering something that is only symbolic instead of addressing the harm directly. So that is very frustrating for us, and honestly, it feels quite unfair. Right now, this proposal feels like it protect the industry more than it protect the creators and the publishers who were affected. And that's why we are struggling to accept that proposal from OmniAI.
Mediators, I think I have to step in here. I am actually becoming very deeply concerned that the technical reality of my team's hard work is being lost in the discussion. So the goal here is to highlight the blame shifting and also the commercial unfairness in the current joint session. We are being grouped into a systemic theft narrative for a training process that we don't even run. This isn't just a legal debate for us, but then it's also about the integrity of our innovation. So before we go any further into these 650,000 ringgit figures, I think Microsoft needs to regroup privately to discuss what we can realistically contribute without admitting to a theft we did not actually commit.
okay, I hear you. So let's just pause here since the tension is rising. I hear your frustrations. So that's exactly why private caucus is very useful. It's a safe space to express these concerns without it escalating further. So maybe we can take up to a 10 to 15 minutes private caucus with everyone so each team can discuss it internally. So we'll regroup afterwards to continue this discussion constructively. Okay.
So, hello, Denise and Jennifer. Thank you for taking some time to step aside. So, before we dive in, I just want to remind you that everything we discuss here is completely confidential. So, it won't be shared with Omni AI or Microsoft unless you choose to. So, now, uh,
I want to really understand your perspective. So could you tell me in your own words, like what worries or concerns you the most about this situation? And could we start with Denise? I think.
Yes, sure. So thank you, Jordan. Honestly, it's been really upsetting for us because this is not just about money. It's about our reputation, our journalist work, and the trust that the readers has put on us. So the creative support fund idea just feels like a token gesture, and it does not really acknowledge that the damage that we have already suffered. And our subscriber again have dropped. Our trust ranking has fallen and morale in the newsroom is low. It feels like the years of hard work our journalists put in are being brushed aside. And I should say this, which I did not mention this earlier in our opening statement, but the impact does not really stop there. Because of what happened, we had to increase our marketing and public engagement budget just to repair the damage and try to win back readers and to restore confidence. So this is a real and ongoing cost to us. So the harm is not only the direct losses you see in subscriber number or ranking, it's also the extra resources we are now forced to spend just to get back to where we are. So that in itself shows the real impact this has had on our reputation. So from our perspective, the proposal does not really reflect that reality, and that's why it feels deeply unsatisfactory for us.
Okay, Denise. Okay, I hear you, Denise. So, this isn't just about compensation in principle. So it's about like recognition of the real harm that's already been done. So you are saying that the creative support funds feels more symbolic than meaningful because it doesn't reflect the loss of subscribers, the hit to public trust, and then the impact on newsroom morale or the additional marketing and public engagement. The public engagement costs you have had to take on just to repair the damage. So I think the key issues for daily ledger are acknowledgeable, are acknowledgement of past harm, protection and restoration of your reputation. So respect for your journalist work going forward, and a solution that genuinely reflects those realities. And it's not just a goodwill gesture. So have I captured that correctly, or is there anything important I've missed?
Yes, we the important thing is that we need certainty. We can't just be promised future goodwill or vague support. We need something that is concrete, something that we can show our board, our journalists, and even our readers that say that this harm was real and it is being addressed.
All right, thank you, Denise, for sharing that. So for Jennifer, how about you? What concern have been weighing on you?
From my perspective as an author, my concerns overlap with Denise's but are also distinct. My novels are my primary source of income, and since Microsoft's AI model was introduced, I have experienced a noticeable decline in my book sales and licensing opportunities. More troubling is that the model is capable of generating outputs that closely mirror the structure, themes, and language of my novels. This undermines my income and my control over my creative works are reproduced and consumed. From my standpoint, safeguards are therefore essential. I need concrete assurance that my works will not continue to be used to train or prompt the model in a way that it allows users to reproduce my novels or substantially similar content. This includes the effective output filtering to prevent near verbatim generation and exclusion of my works from future training datasets.
Can I just add something to that?
Yes, yes. Please go ahead, Denise.
So I also agree with Jennifer, what Jennifer said about the safeguard, because Omni AI has mentioned earlier that they are open to work with the authors, the publisher to put protocol in place that respect the intellectual property while still allowing innovation. But I would like some clarity on how that will actually work in practice and how do we make sure our work won't be used excessively or irresponsibly again. Because like I've said before, we are not against AI or any innovation. What we are concerned about is our reputation and making sure that our work is properly recognized and that our right as authors and copyright holders are respected.
Got it. Now, thinking about resolving this, do you see any options or solutions, maybe from what Omni AI proposed or something else that could actually work for the daily ledger while still allowing you to settle without going to court?
On the compensation part, we could consider a direct compensation payment, which is tied to the actual impact. Earlier, we asked for 650,000 ringgit per infringed work, and we might be willing to accept something slightly lower, maybe a total payment for 2 years plus where our work being used for around 10 million ringgit instead of counting each article individually. But this must come with some things, which is a concrete technical safeguard going forward, which I addressed earlier, and some transparency about the AI output.
For me, a structured settlement without admission of liability could be acceptable. However, unlike a large media organization, I do not have diversified revenue streams. Any settlement must be reflected the long-term impact on my royalties and include author-specific safeguards. This should include an opt-out mechanism for authors, audit or verification rights to ensure compliance, and a clear takedown or prompt blocking process where AI outputs replicate protected content.
Okay, I hear you. That sounds like a possible way forward. You're balancing actual monetary recognition with future protections. Would you want this framed as compensation or just as structured settlement to avoid legal liability?
I think structured settlement is fine. What matters to us is that it is clear, defined, and tied to the actual loss, not just a discretionary fund controlled by OmniAI.
I agree, the label matters less than the substance, particularly where the settlement reflects genuine economic loss and provides enforceable protection for authors.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, both of you still want proper compensation for the past use of your works through a structured settlement rather than a support fund. On the safeguards, you both want clarity on how the collaboration with Omni AI would work going forward. And Denise mentioned that any compensation should come with transparency about how the AI generates its outputs, which Omni AI had proposed earlier. So I can take that both of you agree on that point.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, understood. And what about public perception? I know you don't mind being open, but Omni AI has concerns about their IPO and reputation. Would you be okay if this resolution remained confidential for their sake?
Yes, we can agree to confidentiality, but we just want to make sure the harm is recognized internally and that safeguards are implemented. However, if OmniAI refuse to settle on the fair terms, we are not hesitant to bring this matter to court. If that happens, this issue may go public, and because we have already received intense support from the International Writers Union and the Press Freedom Advocate, and they will be likely publicize the dispute.
I am prepared to agree to confidentiality given the commercial sensitivities involved. However, confidentiality must be tied to enforceable safeguards. Without meaningful protections against continued misuse of my works, confidentiality alone does not address the harm faced by authors.
All right, I understand it. So it sounds like going to court is still an option, but you do have some room to settle here, right? So just a reminder, if this goes to court, there's a real risk, not just cost, but also the uncertainty of the outcome. Settling here could save you both time and money also while getting your concerns addressed.
Yes, I do understand that. And that's why I'm willing to accept any other better settlement through this mediation.
I understand the risk involved, and litigation is not my preferred option. That said, as an individual author, continued unauthorized use poses a long term risk to my livelihood. If mediation can deliver fair compensation together with enforceable safeguards that genuinely prevent recurrence, I am open to settlement. Without those elements, court proceedings remain a realistic alternative for me.
Okay, great. Okay, so one last point to support the compensation amount. Do you have any official reports or data showing the impact from November 2022 to August 2025, such as subscriber loss, drop in readership, or revenue decline?
Yes, we have got reports from our subscription and analytic teams. They can quantify the drop in the subscriber, digital readership, and the overall impact. So that will be back up our claim and help make the payment amount concrete.
I also have sales data from my publishers showing a decline in book sales following the introduction of the AI model, which can support a fair assessment of compensation.
Okay, perfect. That gives us something to work with when we go back to Omni AI and discuss reshaping their proposals. Thank you so much, Denise. Thank you so much, Jennifer. This really helps to clarify our priorities, especially your priorities. Thank you so much. Hi, Rizal and Dr. Sandy. Thank you for stepping into the caucus. I want to begin by reiterating that this is a confidential space. Nothing you say here will be shared with the claimants or Omni AI unless you authorize us to do so or unless it's framed in a way you are comfortable with us conveying. The purpose of this caucus is not to challenge your position, but to understand Microsoft's real concerns, priorities, flexibility, so we can help steer this mediation into a practical resolution. Perhaps we can start with how you're both feeling about the session so far.
Thank you so much. But from Microsoft's perspective, the session has been intense, but it is very much necessary. And we recognize the emotional and commercial concerns raised by Jennifer and Daily Ledger. And at the same time, we are under significant pressure to protect Microsoft's legal position and reputation. And we are all concerned about being drawn into liability for matters that relate to primarily to moral training. And this which was not conducted by us. We are also concerned about the precedent. Any settlement here must not suggest that deployers or licensed AI models automatically assume responsibility for upstream data practices.
I would also like to add on saying that this has personally been very difficult for our team. We deploy AI in a very good faith, believing that proper safeguards are in place. But then hearing that our applications may have caused harm is very, very upsetting. So at the same time, we also genuinely want to do the right thing and ensure that our technology is displayed responsibly to the public.
Okay, that's helpful. So it sounds like Microsoft is balancing several things at once: legal exposure, precedent risk, reputation, and ethical responsibility. Let me ask this directly. What is the single most important outcome Microsoft needs from today's mediation?
Okay, as for us, the most important outcome is a resolution that clearly states that there is no admission of liability by Microsoft, and that is non-negotiable. And beyond that, confidentiality is critical. Public litigation or publicity would be damaging to our global operations and partnerships. We want to resolve this quietly and responsibly and without setting a precedent that undermines our role as a license rather than a developer, actually.
Understood. And in terms of risk assessment, if this matter does not settle today and proceeds to litigation, what concerns you most?
Okay, to answer that, several things. First, reputational damage. Even if Microsoft ultimately succeeds in court, the narrative of big tech exploiting creators is extremely damaging. Secondly, uncertainty courts are still grappling with AI and copyright issues, and litigation would be lengthy, expensive, and unpredictable, as for all of us. And thirdly, the strain on commercial relationships, particularly with Omni AI and other partners who are watching this closely, would be very bad.
And then I think from the operational perspective, a very long litigation or a prolonged litigation would also slow our innovation. So this would divert the attention from improving safeguards and developing better systems. In this case, we would rather put our energy into fixing the problems rather than fighting it publicly.
Okay, that's very clear. So now, let's move on to flexibility. While we have said no admission of liability is essential, is Microsoft prepared to contribute meaningfully to a settlement if it helps achieve finality and protects your broader interests?
Of course, yes, but of course within its limits. And Microsoft is prepared to contribute to a structured settlement framed as a commercial resolution rather than compensation for wrongdoing. And we would be open for contributing financially for a joint settlement fund, particularly if it is shared with Omni AI and tied to forward-looking safeguards rather than past liability.
Yes, that's very important. Can you give me a sense without locking yourself in what of range Microsoft might realistically consider?
Okay, so speaking broadly, right, and without commitments, a contribution in the range of several hundred thousand ringgit could be considered, provided that Omni AI bears the larger share, the settlement is global and final, there is strict confidentiality, fourth, there is a clear non-admission of clause, and fifthly, and there are technical safeguards that prevent recurrence.
Okay, that's very helpful. And on non-financial terms, what is Microsoft prepared to offer?
So, on the part of the non financial terms, we can commit to a stronger deployment of safeguards when using third party models. This would include output filters, enhanced monitoring, and also internal review processes before the deployment of our AI. We are also willing to collaborate with Omni AI and, where appropriate and necessary, publishers or authors to ensure that future deployments respect intellectual property concerns.
Okay, great. Let me check one more thing. How does Microsoft view Omni AI's proposal for a creative support fund?
To answer that, Ms. Jordan, conceptually we are open to it, but we would not want Microsoft to be seen as endorsing any narrative of wrongdoing, actually. If such a fund exists, it must be clearly framed as a goodwill or commercial support mechanism and not an admission of infringement.
Okay, understood. So finally, is there anything you want us as mediators to be particularly careful about when we go back to into the joint session?
Yes. Please be careful not to characterize Microsoft as the party responsible for training data. And that distinction is critical for us. And we are willing to be cooperative, but we cannot accept language or framing that suggests we cause or authorize that alleged misuse.
Okay, I hear you, and that's very clear. So to summarize what I will take back, and please correct me if I get this wrong. Microsoft priorities are confidentiality, no admission of liability, and protection from precedent risk. You are open to a principal settlement that includes a financial contribution shared with Omni AI and tied to forward-looking safeguards rather than past blame. And then you are willing to commit to technical and procedural improvements in deployment practices. And you want this resolved quietly, commercially, and finally. So, does that capture everything?
Yes, that's accurate.
Yes, that clearly reflects our position also.
Okay, that's perfect. So it gives us something concrete to bring back to Microsoft as we look at reshaping their proposal. Thank you, Rizal and Dr. Sandy. This really help aligns us on your priorities.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Sarah and Miss Jordan.
Hello, thank you for stepping aside with me. Just to reassure you, this is a normal part of the mediation process. I meet privately with each party, so there's a space to speak openly. So everything we discuss here stays confidential unless later you want me to bring something back into the joint session. That last session was quite intense, so how are you feeling about things right now?
Honestly, we are quite concerned. As you can see, things escalated very quickly. Our proposal was meant to ease the situation, but it clearly didn't land that way. The discussion moved very quickly into numbers and responsibility. From our perspective, that is very, very risky, especially with the IPO coming up. Even if it's not meant that way, things can be interpreted very differently once they are written down.
That's understandable. So it sounds like your concern isn't about avoiding a settlement, but about protecting how anything agreed today might be interpreted afterward.
Yes, exactly. We want to resolve this responsibly, but we cannot afford language or structures that suggest we have done something unlawful. That would definitely affect investor confidence and regulatory scrutiny, which is far beyond this dispute.
I hear that. And I also get the sense that preserving key business relationships, especially with Microsoft, is important to you.
Yes, very important. They are one of our major clients. We don't want this process to turn into blame shifting or damaging that relationship.
So, are there clear boundaries you don't want the discussion to cross?
Yes, absolutely. We cannot acknowledge that copyrighted words were used without consent, and we certainly cannot agree to anything framed as damages for wrongdoing. Those are very, very firm boundaries.
Okay, I hear you. So let me gently share what seems to be driving the other parties without getting into positions or label. There's a lot of emphasis on certainty. They are looking for something that's clearly structured and final rather than something that feels discretionary. At the same time, they are pushing for safeguards that feel practical and meaningful, not just technical language. Given all of that, how is Omni AI thinking about moving forward?
Actually, we've talked it both of us, and we think that there might be some middle ground. Obviously, we still cannot admit legal liability. That's not something we can move on. But we are open to keeping the creative support fund and letting it operate as the settlement mechanism, as long as it is clearly framed as commercial support and not compensation for wrongdoing.
Okay, I hear you. So the substance is there, but the framing is crucial.
Yes, exactly. Also, we prefer to be clear on the financial side. Say that if there's a global figure agreed under the Creative Support Fund, we are willing to take around maybe 70% of that amount, and then the other 30%, Microsoft would take the remaining. I think this split is very important because we don't want to strain our relationship with them, but we also does not want to make it look like they are fully responsible for that. Yeah.
Okay, I hear you. So that's helpful to know. Apart from financial assistance, how do you plan to assist creators, especially individual creators and publishers? What's Omni AI prepared to offer there?
Well, my client's Omni AI is willing to go beyond financial assistance. For example, for Jennifer's and individuals creators, Omni AI is prepared to actively support her works through our AI ecosystems, such as featuring her books in recommended reading lists, highlighting them in AI readings and system as reference, and directing users to her official sales channels through links. We can also help to boost the visibility around her new books of a new book launch by attaching it at the bottom of the AI's readings. contents that produced by our AIs models. As for the daily ledgers, we can drive users to their original articles by attaching a links back to their websites at the bottom of the content produced by AI as well. And also we could highlight the headlines and also provides a clear prompts like read the originals or full content of the story here, which could provide a better improvement on their subscription and also readerships.
That sounds much more forward-looking.
Yeah, because that's the intention. We want this to feel collaborative, not creative. And also, we are open to future licensing agreement. For example, for Jennifer's, her upcoming works, and for the Daily Ledger's future archive, maybe at special corporate rates as part of a broader collaboration rather than anything retrospective.
And in terms of safeguards and transparency?
Well, we agree to undertake several measures such as improving prompts, filtering, data sets, exclusions, and ongoing monitoring of outputs. In addition, our clients and we are open to engage with any creators who face problems with the use of our AI of their copywriters works, and we are happy to resolve the matters. We are always open to resolve it. But all of those must be framed clearly as future improvements, not as an acknowledgement of past infringement of copyrights.
There's also sensitivity around how Microsoft is characterized in any resolution.
Yeah, we're aligned on that. We don't want Microsoft to be portrayed as responsible for training data or wrongdoing. So, any settlement language needs to be very, very careful on that point.
Okay, let me just check that I've understood you correctly. So there's a couple of things Omni AI is prepared to propose. First is keeping the creative support fund framed as commercial support rather than damages. Second, a clear financial structure where Omni AI bears 70% and Microsoft 30%. Third, a strong technical safeguards and transparency going forward. And next is active promotion of Jennifer's books through AI ecosystem. Next is traffic redirection and subscription visibility for the daily ledger. And moving on, future licensing at preferential rates, added benefits like early access to tools, verified creator recognition, and AI assisted promotional support, and all within a confidential settlement without admission of liability and without shifting the blame to Microsoft. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, that's exactly our position.
Okay, and if others are prepared to work within that framework, is Omni AI willing to settle on that basis?
Yes, we want to resolve this and move forward.
Okay, that is all right. That gives me a clear sense of where you stand. I'll take this back carefully and see how it's received. Thank you so much, Junwei, and thank you so much, Shuan Singh, together with me and my co-mediator here. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you too.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate the flexibility and the engagement shown during the earlier discussions. So, at this point, we'd like to bring everyone back together into the main joint session. So, the purpose of this stage is to begin moving from the identifying issues into exploring possible solutions. This doesn't mean anyone is committing to anything yet, but it simply allows us to understand what has been proposed and how each party responds. So we can perhaps start with Jennifer.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, mediators. I appreciate the chance to share my perspective. My main concern has been the ongoing unauthorized use of my works and the impact on my income and creative control. I want enforceable safeguards, transparency on AI outputs, and a structured settlement that reflects the real loss I've experienced. I am open to a settlement under these terms, provided it genuinely protects my rights and includes clear, practical mechanism to prevent future misuse. Confidentiality is acceptable as long as the protections are enforceable. I'm ready to work constructively toward a resolution that achieves this.
Understood. Understood. Thank you so much, Jennifer. So, thank you for clearly outlining. So, your focus is on enforceable safeguards, transparency, and a structured settlement that reflects loss is clearly noted. So, confidentiality here is acceptable, and your willingness to work constructively towards a resolution is very much appreciated. So, to help structure this, we'd like to start hearing from the Daily Ledger representative. So, again, this is not about final positions. So, just what you are proposing has a starting point. So, Denise.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So I just want to focus on what we are looking at right now with OmniAI's proposal. So on the compensation side, the creative support fund idea does not really reflect the real impact we have faced, as I mentioned earlier. So we could not agree on that. So what we be willing to consider is a structured settlement tied to the actual impact, which is something that is concrete, not discretionary. For example, it might be a total payment which cover the last 2 years' losses, which is 10 million ringgit in total, instead of counting every single article individually as our initial proposal. So alongside with that, we need technical safeguard. We want clarity on how your proposal of collaborating with the creator or authors is going to be executed, so that our work is not reproduced inappropriately again in the future. We just want to be recognized as the creators and to maintain our reputation. Also, transparency is key. We need to see that our content is being treated correctly and that the safeguards are enforceable. And I believe that has been proposed earlier, so I can agree to that proposal. Finally, on the confidentiality, it is fine with us. We understand the sensitivity of their IPO and commercial reputation, but it cannot come at the expense of enforceable protection. If these conditions are not met, we are prepared to pursue other options, which is include legal proceeding. So to sum up, structured compensation plus clear, enforceable safeguard and transparency. So that's where the Daily Ledger stands.
Thank you, Denise. That was very clear. So let me briefly reflect what we have heard. The Daily Ledger is not comfortable with the Creative Support Fund as proposed, as it does not reflect the actual impact you have experienced. Instead, you are putting forward a structured settlement based on real losses over a defined period rather than a per article approach. And you have also emphasized that any resolution must include clear and enforceable technical safeguards, practical collaboration mechanism to prevent inappropriate reproduction of your work, and meaningful transparency around how your content is handled. So while you are agreeable to confidentiality, it must come alongside firm protections and not replace them. So please let us know if that captures your position accurately.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Denise. So maybe we can move on to Omni AI to share its initial response. We don't want to renegotiate figures at this stage, but just to outline what potentially feels workable here and what raises concerns and what we want to further discuss.
Okay, so thank you, mediators, and thank you, Dennis and Jennifer, for setting out your position so clearly. So we have listened carefully, particularly to the concern that the Creative Support Fund, as initially framed, felt too discretionary and did not provide enough certainty. We understand why that matters to both an organization like the Daily Ledger and also individual creator like Miss Jennifer. So on the financial aspect, While we cannot agree to any payment framed as compensation or damages for past wrongdoing, we are prepared to agree to a fixed global amount of 10 million ringgit Malaysia, covering the same 2-year period identified as mentioned as a daily ledger. So we propose that this be structured under a revised creative support fund, but not as an open or discretionary scheme, but as a clearly defined one-off commercial settlement with a fixed amount agreed upfront. So I think this provides certainty while also remain within our legal and commercial boundaries. So next on safeguard and implementation, we agreed that solution must be practical and meaningful. So for the daily ledger, we are prepared to ensure that our AI system will actively direct users to your original journalism through clear links, headline references, and prompts such as read the original story here. This is to support attribution, readership, and also subscription. And for individual creators like Miss Jennifer, we are prepared to support creative work through responsible referencing, increased visibility, and also directing users to official sales or publishing channels so that the creative control and income streams are really reinforced. And we are also open to future podcast licensing arrangement for both Daily Ledger and also Miss Jennifer at preferential corporate rates, which we are going to frame it as ongoing collaboration rather than the retrospective liability. And in addition, we are also prepared to implement concrete technical measures, including improved prompt filtering, dataset exclusion, and also ongoing monitoring of output. All of this will be framed as future improvement and not acknowledgement of past infringement. So finally, on confidentiality and enforceability, we agree that confidentiality must sit alongside clear, binding commitments on safeguard and also transparency. So while confidentiality remains important to us, given to our IPO and commercial contacts, we believe that both objectives can be achieved through carefully drafted terms. Our aim is to reach a structured, certain, and constructive resolution that allows all of us to move forward with clarity and trust. So that's all from AI.
Okay, thank you, June. So just to summarize briefly here, Omni AI recognizes the daily ledger's concerns with the original Creative Support Fund, which is offering a fixed 10 million Malaysian ringgit global settlement for a 2 period you identified. So second one, safeguards will be practical and enforceable, including directing AI users to original content, ongoing monitoring, prompt filtering, and dataset exclusions. And thirdly, future focused licensing arrangements are proposed, not retrospective measures. And finally, confidential. We have all agreed to confidential, remains important here. So, Jennifer and Denise, is this okay with you so far? So perhaps we can start off with Jennifer.
Yeah, this framework addresses my main concerns with the structured settlement and possible safeguards and transparency on AI outputs and confidentiality. This all tied to protections all work for me. So I'm ready to move forward under these terms.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Jennifer. So, what about Denise? Do you feel this is something the Daily Ledger could work with?
Okay, thank you, Omni AI, for the new proposal earlier. We appreciate the clarity and the practicality of the proposal, and after reviewing the suggestion, we can agree to that proposal because we believe this will address our main concern regarding the compensation, the safeguard, transparency, and enforceability. So we are ready to move forward under these terms.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer and Denise. It's good to hear there's agreement on the framework proposed by the Omni AI. So let's now hear from Microsoft. Perhaps, Rizal, could you outline Microsoft perspective and whether the proposals are discussed align with your client's position?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Jordan. And actually, from Microsoft's perspective, right, there are three key points we need to make it very clear. Firstly, is on responsibility part. Microsoft did not develop or train AI model, nor did we control the selection or ingestion of training data. That distinction is legally commercially important for us, and any resolution must not imply an admission of wrongdoing or primary responsibility for the alleged infringement. And secondly, on resolution, Microsoft is not here to obstruct settlement. We recognize the seriousness of the concerns raised by the Daily Ledger and Ms. Jennifer, particularly in relation to reputational impact and future safeguards. And provided the safe framework is forward-looking, confidential, and without admission of liability, Microsoft is prepared to engage constructively in global resolution, actually. And thirdly, in terms of safeguards, Microsoft is willing to support clearly defined and proportionate technical and operational measures within our deployment environment, and including output filtering, content exclusion mechanisms, and compliance reviews in cooperation with OmniAI. And on the financial aspect, Microsoft is not willing to accept open-ended or disproportionate exposure for training processes outside our control. However, we are open to discuss a defined contribution as part of our structured settlement focused on future protections rather than retrospective liability. And to summarize all this in short, Microsoft seeks a principled resolution that clearly allocates responsibility, that avoids admissions of liability, ensures confidentiality, and implements meaningful safeguards going forward. And we believe there is room to move forward in that direction.
Okay, thank you, Rizal. So, in brief, what we hear from Microsoft is Microsoft maintains that it did not develop or train the AI model and cannot accept any outcome implying admission of liability or primary responsibility. And at the same time, Microsoft is willing to engage constructively in a confidential, forward looking resolution. So, it is open to supporting defined technical safeguards and proportionate measures within its deployment environment, and to discussing a structured financial contribution as part of a broader settlement, and also provided responsibility is clearly allocated and exposure remains limited. Okay, so before we move on, I would like to invite Omni AI to respond to what we have just heard from Microsoft.
Okay. Thank you, Jordan. First of all, I appreciate Microsoft willingness to engage this mediation constructively and keep the focus forward-looking and confidential. This is the approach that consistent with what my clients wants to resolve this dispute by moving towards solutions without escalating blames to anyone. But I would like to highlight that recently, in the case of Brass and Anthropics, the U.S. court has recognized the doctrines of fair use is applicable on AI training models, and this doctrine is similar or identical to our doctrine of fair dealings under our copyright laws, and thus it is very likely to be applicable to our case, even if the matter were to be brought before the court. Therefore, we can safely assume that there will be no admission of legal liabilities, even Microsoft will to pay the funds, as our act falls squarely under the exception. So I will rest assured that Microsoft will have no admissions of legal liabilities. On safeguards, OmniAI is prepared to work hand in hand with Microsoft at the deployments levels, as long as the measures are clearly defined and focus on future use. We believe that they can be put in place cooperatively without any liabilities concerns. Finally, on the financial side, we do understand Microsoft needs for defined and proportionate contributions. If a global figures is agreed as part of structured settlements, my client is prepared to take on the larger share, which is 70, and Microsoft will be 30. So it will be a 7-30 split, and this is about keeping the partnership balance and not shifting responsibilities. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Singh, and thank you for highlighting the case. And thank you to each and everyone for your constructive engagement throughout this mediation. So I'm pleased to confirm that we have reached to an agreement on the key points of a structured, settlement agreement here. So I just want to summarize the agreements before we move on to signing. So first is the compensation settlement, which is that the daily ledger and individual authors like Jennifer. So they receive a structured settlement of 10 million ringgit, covering the defined 2-year period. So it reworked the original Creative Support Fund proposal. So it's a one-off defined settlement tied to actual impact. So there's no admission of liability by both Omni AI and Microsoft. And second is the safeguards and enforcement. So Omni AI and Microsoft will implement practical, enforceable technical measures here. So it collaborates with the authors, publishers. We don't want this to reoccur again. So there's author-specific safeguards that you guys are working on. And third is the future licensing. So licensing arrangements will be future focused, not retrospective, at preferential corporate rates. So my co-mediator, Jordan, will go over the rest.
Thank you, Sarah. So moving on. The fourth one is transparency, which the parties will ensure transparency in AI output handling, also giving the daily ledger and authors visibility and confidence that safeguards are working effectively. And the fifth is confidentiality, which the settlement and details will remain confidential, respecting commercial sensitivities, including the Omni AI's IPO, while ensuring enforceable safeguards are maintained. And the 6 points are responsibility, which Microsoft position is recognized and it did not develop or train the AI model and will not be assigned retrospective liability. Responsibilities are clearly allocated in line with each party's role. And lastly, is financial contribution, which Omni AI will take the largest share of the structured settlement with a 70-30 split with Microsoft, ensuring balanced participation. This allocation reflects Omni AI's role as model developer and Microsoft limited role as deployer without implying fault or retrospective liability. So it is also about finding the balance here. We want to acknowledge concerns and efforts by Daily Ledger and Jennifer regarding compensation, safeguards, transparency, and enforceability, while also respecting the commercial and legal position of Omni AI and Microsoft. With these points agreed, the next step is to move forward to the formal signing process, which will finalize and bind all parties to these terms.
So we have sent the agreement in the chat box, and so perhaps all the lawyers can move forward with signing if you're agreeing to the settlements agreements that we have put forth.
Okay, if that's okay and comfortable with everyone, thank you again to everyone for your cooperation and constructive approach in achieving this resolution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.